Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Since I've been an English teacher for more than a decade, during all those years, I found out that using the word who, it's somehow complicated for many students. Using it in active sentences is complicated for students. Obviously, when they use it in passive form, it's even more complicated. So I decided to explain this in this clip and try my best to make it simple and make it easier for students to learn how to use this word who. How to use it in active sentences and passive sentences. So the word who can function as a subject in a WH question as well as an object. Look at the first option over here. When it functions as a subject, just keep in mind that when the word who functions as a subject, it is followed directly by the main verb form in simple present tense or in simple past tense. There isn't any other subject, okay? In other tenses, there may be auxiliary verb and then main verb, but there won't be any subject, okay? But when it functions as an object, it is followed by a helping verb and then a subject and then main verb. Look at the first example. Who writes a letter? Who writes a letter? We do not have any other subject. So the word who itself functions here as a subject. And write is the main verb. Okay, and a letter is the object. If it's simple past tense, who wrote a letter? Simple future tense, who will write a letter? See, who will write a letter? There is no any other subject. Our question with who in this case is about the subject, about the doer of an action. So who writes a letter, and you may put just the name of the subject over here, that will be the answer for this question. Okay, he writes a letter or she writes a letter, or Mike writes a letter or Jamal writes a letter, okay? And when you change it to passive form, there are two ways. If you use the preposition by and change who to whom, it will be somehow more formal. By whom is a letter written. You should already know, the rules for 12 tenses, when you change active sentences to passive sentences. You can watch our clip here saying that changing 12 tenses from active form to passive form. So by whom is a letter written. It's more formal. But if you use, the preposition by at the end of your sentence, it will be not very formal. It's just, used in spoken English commonly, just normal English. Who is a letter written by? Okay, so now who was the subject of our active sentence here, and it became the object of our passive sentence, okay, by whom? And of course, a to be verb should be used according to the tense. In simple present tense, so there's to be verb is. And object of the active sentence is used as a subject over here, okay? So by whom is a letter, and main verb is changed to third form, written. Or who is a letter written by. When it functions as object, like in these examples, it is followed by a helping verb, then subject, and then main verb. Look, das is your auxiliary verb or helping verb. And he is subject, teach is main verb. So where is the object? Who itself functions here as an object. Who does he teach? Okay? Whom does he teach? Who does he teach? So in formal English, it could be whom does he teach. In normal English or spoken, it could be who does he teach. And now when we change this kind of sentence from active form to passive form, so who, the word who here functions as an object. Object of the active sentence becomes the subject of our passive sentence. But the position is, still at the beginning of the sentence, at the beginning of our question. And then instead of does, the auxiliary does, we use the helping verb is, a to be verb. And the main verb form is changed to past participle or third form. And subject of the active sentence becomes object of preposition or an agent of the subject. Okay, so now who does he teach English? Who does he teach? And who is taught by him? It could be even more complicated if you have a double transitive verb which takes two objects. Look at this example. Who does he teach English to? So here we have two objects. English and who itself. Here, who does he teach English to? Object functions as indirect object. Our question is about indirect object in this information question. In English is a direct object. So we have two objects here. Even in active form, if we use the preposition to at the beginning of our sentence or this information question, and we change who to whom, it will be more formal to say it this way: to whom does he teach English? But who does he teach English to is also very common. Spoken English is not very formal, but it's very common, in spoken English, using preposition at the end of, these kind of sentences. So, to whom does he teach English, or who does he teach English to? Okay, now, there are two ways. Again, if you want to be formal, if you want to, use the formal way, you bring the same phrase to whom, okay? And instead of does, we use the helping verb is, okay? And after that, we use, the object. The direct object over here after the to be verb is English. And main verb is changed to past participle of third form. So now, object of the active sentence became the subject of a passive sentence over here. And subject, he, became the object of preposition or an agent of the subject. So, to whom is English taught by him? Formal. But we can also say who is English taught to by him. Who is English taught to by him? That will be somehow, spoken or informal. This is how we can use the word who as subject or as object in our active sentences and passive sentences. Let me try to change the first sentence in which who functions as a subject in a few more tenses as well. So this is simple present tense, who writes a letter, and by whom is a letter written. Simple past tense would be who wrote a letter, and the passive form would be by whom was a letter written. Okay, so if it's simple past tense, you change the to be verb, is to was. Okay, and of course here you change the main verb to second form. Who writes, who wrote, okay? Who will write a letter tomorrow, by whom will a letter be written tomorrow? So that's simple future tense. If it's a continuous tense, who is writing a letter? Who is writing a letter? By whom is a letter being written? Don't forget, if you have two helping verbs or more than two helping verbs, still the subject of your passive sentence comes right after the first helping verb. Okay? Like in this sentence, you have is and being. Okay? So the subject, which is a letter here in your passive sentence, comes after is. By whom is a letter being written? Who was writing a letter? By whom was a letter being written? Who will be writing a letter? By whom will a letter be being written? Okay, we have three auxiliaries here, three helping verbs here. Will, be, being. So, you know, a letter, which is the subject of a passive sentence, comes right after the first auxiliary. So, by whom will a letter be being written? If it's present perfect tense, who has written a letter? By whom has a letter been written? Who had written a letter? By whom had a letter been written? In future perfect tense, who will have written a letter? And by whom will a letter have been written? Okay, so what can we do here? I mean, who does he teach? You know, simple present tense. And if simple past tense, just change, does to did. Who did he teach? Who is taught by him, change it to who was taught by him. If it's simple future tense, for example, who will he teach? Okay, and change this to who will be taught by him. If it's present continuous tense, who is he teaching? Okay, and here, who will be being taught by him? Who was he teaching? Who will be being taught by him? Who will he be teaching? Sorry, if it's future continuous tense. Who will he be teaching, and who will be being taught by him? If it's present perfect tense, who has he taught? And when you change it to passive form, who has been taught by him? Okay, and if it's past perfect tense, who had he taught? Okay, and if it's passive form, I mean, you say who had been taught by him. If it's future perfect tense, who will have he taught? In the passive form would be who will have been taught by him. Okay, so this is how we can change sentences from active form to passive form when the word who functions as a subject or as an object in our information questions. I hope that now it's not very complicated for you to use the word who in active and passive sentences. Have a great time.
با فراگیری زبان انگلیسی در اتاراد، اهداف اکادمیک و مسلکی خود را تعقیب نمایید.